Hello, it's Rebecca from Precious Pages Papercraft, and today I'm designing a layout for Peartree Cutfiles, and I'm using the You Are My Sun, My Moon and All of My Stars cut file from the February release, and I've cut it onto basil textured white cardstock. Now I've also cut it a second time, just the sun, moon and stars, so that I can overlap that. And I'm taping it down because I want to add mixed media to my background whilst it's still on the mat. That will hopefully stop my cut file from warping, but I don't want to get my mixed media on the sun, moon and stars. So that's why I've cut it a second time, and I'm just trying to cover that up and protect it. That was the best way I could think of doing it. Now I do apologise, I have a cold, so I might sound a bit bunged up and funny, so I'm going to try and get through this video the best I can, and just typically it's one of the longest videos I've made, so we'll see how I go. So my idea was to do a galaxy background on my cut file itself. So I've pulled out all of my distress inks in different shades of blues, and I've got purple and pink that I'll bring in later. And I'm just using the packaging technique to apply those colours. So I've started with the lighter shade. Oh, and I just found two more stars at the bottom there that I'd missed and hadn't cut extra of. So I'm now frantically trying to cover those up with washi tape. So as I was saying, I've started with the lightest shade of blue, which is Tumbled Glass. And I'm just applying that to a piece of packaging, adding a bit of water, and then smushing it down on my background. I'm trying not to add too much water because I want the background to be quite patchy, because I've got to build it up in layers, and I don't want to completely colour wash it with each colour and then just cover it up with the next colour, because that won't give me the effect I'm after. So with things like galaxy backgrounds, when I'm mixing a lot of colours, it is all about layering it up and just building it gradually and drying each colour in between. And that's the main reason I've left this file on my cutting mat to do this, because I know whenever I use lots of mixed media and my heat gun, it always warps, and it would have just been a nightmare with all my letters and words curled up to then apply the next colour, the next layer. So the mat is helping to keep this down. At the time of doing this, I wasn't quite sure how my cutting mat would fare under all the mixed media and the heat gun, but actually it's been fine, so I got quite lucky. So I've also added there some more distress ink in Salty Ocean and a small amount in Mermaid Lagoon, and then this darker shade here is Chipped Sapphire, which is one of my favourites. And I've also got this Chipped Sapphire in Distress Oxide, but I always find it dries a bit more purple than blue. So I've gone for the Distress ink on this one. And again, just building it up gradually, adding bit by bit, leaving it as patchy as I can, because then I want all the shades to show through. It really does add to the effect, and the important thing is to dry it in between each layer. So I'm just taking some time to build that up, and then I'm coming in with some Lindy Starburst sprays. Now these are shimmery, so these are what make the galaxy background as beautiful as it is. So I've got two shades of blue I'm using. The lighter one here is called Sassy Sapphire, and this second one is a more kind of turquoisey blue. It's called Delphinium Turquoise. And you just have to give those a bit of a shake to use those, because all the shimmer settles at the bottom. So just give them a bit of a shake and a rub between your fingers, and that soon loosens all that glitter. So that's me done with all the blues. I'm now going to come in with some shades of pink. So again, I start off with a distress ink. This is Picked Raspberry. And again, I've got this in a Distress Oxide, but I don't find it as bright. This is kind of like what I would call sort of hot pink or Barbie pink, and the oxide I find has got a bit more of a kind of powdery pinkness to it. So I've gone with the ink as it's brighter, and then this is a Lindy Starburst again, so nice and shimmery. I'll have to check the shade of this one because I don't actually know it. It's not one I use often. I don't use pink in my scrapbooking very often at all. It's very, very rare you will see pink on my layouts. I always scrap for my little boy, so and he's a very boy, so we're all about mud and construction vehicles and puddles and trains, so pink doesn't really work. So I'll look up the shade of that pink one and pop it in the description box below. Now I've come back in with some blue just to add a bit more shimmer. This is a Lindy's Magicals, and again it's in Delphinium Turquoise, but I find that very shimmery, so I've added a little bit of that in. And then I'm coming back in with the pink Starburst spray, and I'm applying this with a paintbrush, and then I've got a small bit of acetate packaging that I'm just using to smush that down. And that's because I was finding with using the packaging technique on its own, I was getting too much pink and I wanted more blue than pink. So just spreading some colour with a paintbrush there. Now I'm trying to get a bit of a darker shade of blue here, so I've mixed the Lindy's Magicals Delphinium Turquoise with a tiny amount of black, and that's a Distress Ink refiller, and it's called Black Soot, but I put too much black in, so had to sort of soak a bit up with a tissue and bring some more of the blue powder in, and that was just me trying to get a darker shade of blue there. So that's blue and pink taken care of. Now I'm coming in with some purple. I can't remember the shade of this one now. It's the only purple I've got in Distress Ink, so I'll have to link that in the comments in the description box below. And I've also got a Lindy's Starburst spray in purple, so again another shimmery spray. Again, not one I use often, so I'll have to add the shade in the description box. And I've skipped through the drying process. You didn't need to see me with a heat gun, but in between each layer of colour there, I have been drying that with my heat gun. And now I'm coming in with my black. So this is a Distress Ink in Black Soot. I tried applying it with a blending tool first just to see how that looked, but it wasn't going to be dark enough, so I've come in with the packaging technique. At this stage I'm always worried I'm going to add too much black and completely destroy all the work I've done leading up to this point. So it's little by little and smushing it down, trying to get that black spread out a bit. And I'm using a paper towel to soak that up because I don't want it completely covered in black. I want to be able to see some of those colours through the black. So just soaking the excess up with a paper towel as I go. And then I'm coming in with the blending tool just to add a bit of black. Now this is quite soft, gives a quite soft effect, so it's not covering up too much, but just the areas that are still showing quite colourful, I'm just adding a light layer of the Distress Ink over with the blending tool. The video doesn't really do it justice here. You can't really see how shimmery it is, so you'll have to check out the close-ups at the end to get a much better idea of how shimmery this layout has turned out. And what galaxy would be complete without some stars? So to get the effect of stars, I'm watering down some white acrylic paint and trying to add some really, really fine white splatters to my background. And I'm doing that, I've got a paintbrush here, it's kind of like a fanned out paintbrush, and I'm just tapping it on my finger and kind of running it along my finger, trying to almost spray those tiny white splatters off of my finger. Before I've added this white, I've made sure that my background was as dry as physically possible, because otherwise that white is just going to soak into the background and you're not going to be able to see it. So make sure everything is completely dry before adding the white. And then I'm coming back in, this is a Distress Spray Stain, I think this one is. It's in brushed pewter and it's like a metallic silver. And I'm doing exactly the same process, just using the fan paintbrush and my finger to add some really fine splatters. And then I wanted a few larger splatters, so I'm just coming in with a paintbrush to add those in. And that is pretty much it for the galaxy side of things. So that is how I create my galaxy backgrounds. I've done it previously on layouts where I've done the whole background cardstock as a galaxy and then sort of embellished on top. So you can kind of see here, you've got the different colours showing through. I've got a little bit of cut file surgery to do there as I was taking off of the mat. The second L in all stuck down and I ended up ripping it off, so I can tape that back on at the end, that's not a problem. And now you can see where I covered up my sun, moon and stars. I now need to paint those. My sun managed to get a little bit of pink ink on it, not a problem because I'm going to paint it, so hopefully most of that will get covered up. I tried using a yellow Shimmers paint I've got there, it's an original Shimmers, but it was a bit loud. It was like bright lemon yellow and it was just not really the colour I was going for. So I ditched that idea and instead I'm using a gold acrylic paint. And this is metallic gold, so it's again got quite a shine to it and probably better than the Shimmers because it will cover up that pink ink I got on one of the triangle pieces a lot better. So I'm not watering my brush down or anything here, I'm just painting that on neat, so it got a nice thick coating there. So that's my sun finished. Onto my moon. I'm using a Cosmic Shimmer Iridescent watercolour paint here, and these are solid paint pots that you have to add water to activate. And you can see here I've still got some of that yellow shimmers on my paintbrush, so it's looking a bit yellow. So I had to just soak that up and start again, just trying to clean my brush there. And this shade is called Pearlescent, and it's kind of like a white iridescent sparkly paint. Kind of like the inside of seashells when you get that lovely iridescent look to them. So I've done my moon with that, and then for my stars I'm coming back in with that Distress Spray stain in brushed pewter and painting my stars metallic silver. I've watered that down on a bit of packaging, but it wasn't really coming out as bold and silver as I was hoping. So now I've ditched that and going just paintbrush straight into the pot and painting that on neat, and it's much more the colour I was looking for. So that is my cut file finished. I'm just going to dry those bits off with my heat gun, and I'll give you a close-up shot. You can see how beautiful that is. It's really shimmery in real life, and you can see all the shades through on that galaxy where I've added the black, but kind of sparingly. I've not completely covered it, so you can see all those lovely colours. And off camera I've applied foam pads to the back of all the letters, and then just some craft foam in thin strips to the back of the centre of the sun, the moon and some of the stars, so that I can raise my cut file up off of my background, and that adds a bit of dimension and will cast a lovely shadow over my page. I'm using the same cardstock for my background as I did for my cut file, so just a white textured basil cardstock. I really love using the textured stuff for mixed media layouts because I find it just adds a bit more texture, and it just, I don't know, it makes my mixed media look so much prettier. I really do like the effect of lots of mixed media on the textured cardstock. And I'm not bothering with any gesso because I don't plan on adding a lot of water. This is another Cosmic Shimmer Iridescent watercolour pot. and I just added a bit of water to activate it, and I'm just going in with a paintbrush and I'm trying to apply some silver paint just behind where my cut file is going to sit. I have to keep adding more water, it's soaking up pretty quickly into this brush, so just keep watering it down, and then when the water kind of is all absorbed and it disappears, I try and use the paintbrush just to add some darker shades in there, and that's literally just going to sit underneath my cut file. So it takes me some time just to get it to a point that I'm happy with. And I'm not too fussed that you can see paintbrush marks at this point. It hopefully won't be as obvious when it's dried and finished. I'm going to add some more bits and pieces to my background so it won't be so obvious. And at this point I'm quite undecided on my photos. I've got these two coloured photos from my son's school photo sheet. And then I've got a couple of other black and white ones, and I couldn't decide initially, so I kept trying both to see which I thought looked better. And now I'm adding some more silver paint splatters to my background. Again, this is the Distress Spray Stain in brushed pewter. I'm just soaking up the excess there from the larger splatters. So this is how it's looking so far. I've decided to go with the black and white photos, and off camera I've just added some layers behind that. There's a couple of layers of patterned paper, and then I've used a silver glitter cardstock to finish those off, and I've distressed all the edges with an edge distresser just to add a bit more texture. And now I'm going to continue working on my background. So I've got this star stencil by Echo Park, and I'm using a Distress Oxide in, I believe that's Broken China, just to add some more colour to my background, and I'm using a blending tool just to press that through my stencil lightly. I'm just going to do it in some random areas behind the cut file so you can see it underneath and peeking out. And I just keep bringing my cut file on my photos back in just to see how it's looking. I have a tendency to go overboard with mixed media, so it's better to keep doing it a little bit at a time and just bringing the cut file back in to see how I like it. And then I decided to add a few more stars. Again, this is a Distress Oxide, and this one is a chipped sapphire. So I don't mind using it for things like this. It's a little bit on the purple side, but that's fine. But I decided to avoid the oxide when I was doing my galaxy effect on my cut file. But I love that these two colours go really well with that galaxy effect. You kind of got the turquoisey blue colour showing through the letters, so that Distress Oxide stars kind of really helps to complement that. And then I'm just going to go through the painstaking process of removing all the backs off of my foam pads. I've skipped through that bit for you because it did take forever for me to get all of those off. And then I've applied a small amount of PVA glue behind the sun, moon and stars, just where I'd used the strips of craft foam. And then because my cut file is raised up, I want to also do the same with my photos. And I'm just using some double-sided adhesive foam tape there to do that, and trying to slot my photos in kind of where the cut file gives you kind of natural positions to do that. So one on the left and one on the right over there. And I've gone for square photos. These are about 3 by 3 inches. And at this point I've decided I need some kind of border on my layout. There was so much going on in the middle, and it kind of felt unfinished without anything around the outside edge. So I decided I wanted to add a galaxy border to the whole page. So I've got the middle of the cardstock there that I cut my file from initially, and I'm going to repeat the whole process of creating that galaxy effect again. I'm going to do it on bubble wrap this time because the cardstock there has been gutted, so it's going to make a right mess on my desk. I'm not going to make you watch me do that all over again. I will skip through that. But I have done exactly the same process with exactly the same colours to get myself a border. And as always with me, when I add a border, I like to distress the edges of my background cardstock, and I'm just using an edge distresser for that. And that ties in nicely with my photos because I've done the same thing with all the paper layers behind my photos. And then, still not happy with it, I'm coming in with some distress inks again in a blending tool, and I'm going around the whole outside edge of my layout with some inks. So I went around first with Stormy Sky, and a second time with the same purple I used for the Galaxy. I'll link the description in the box below because I can't remember the shade name. And then I wanted to fold the two corners over here, and I'm just adding some staples in to hold that down. And I've just stuck that down with double-sided tape all the way around the edge. I'm just using my thumbs to distress that a bit further. So at this point, you'd be pleased to know that I am finally finished with my mixed media and my background, and I'm just going to work on adding a couple of small embellishments. I'm not going to go mad because the layout is already busy with that huge cut file taking centre stage. And I've got a lot going on the background already, so I've got some little gems here I'm adding on. I've got gems and jewels in different shades of kind of white, silver, blue and purple. I'm just sprinkling those, and I've used glossy accents to stick those down. And then I'm adding some stars. These are Bramble Fox perspectives. I've got a couple of silver glitter ones and some white I think I use, and I think that one might be baby blue, that one. So I'm just adding 4 of those stars on my layout. Because it's a galaxy background, you can never have too many stars. At this point I was thinking I wanted to add more, but wasn't sure what to add because I didn't want to take away from the mixed media and that cut file. So I've used the scrap of paper that I had left over from where my cut file had been cut. This was this middle piece that I gutted out for that border, and I'm using a small handheld star punch just to punch some stars out, and then I'm just going to sprinkle those around the layout along with those jewels. And that is finally the last thing I do. So thank you for sticking with me for this video. I think it's the longest one I've made yet, but I didn't want to cut too much of the process out because that background obviously was a process in itself and took a lot of layers to build it up. So I wanted to show each one of those. And you can kind of see the shimmer there. So I will leave you with some close-ups. I've taken lots because I got carried away with how pretty that galaxy is. So thank you very much for joining me. This cut file is now available on the Peartree Cutfiles website. And if you're not in our Facebook group, please do join because our monthly crop is coming up next weekend. So there'll be lots of challenges and some great inspiration. Until then, I'll see you next time.